pull over, park it, and get ready to do some serious rubbernecking. Because they're back. More of the world's worst drivers. And this time, they're on a roll.
Oh, somebody got that on video.
These slippery characters are all over the place. In the water, in the air, on the road, and always in everyone's way. They have no respect for property or authority.
I had enough of you!
Or even their own cars. From the passing lane to the crashing lane. These drivers are so bad, they can't even park. But they all have one thing in common. They're the world's worst drivers. Buckle up. It's gonna be a bumpy ride.
Good evening. I'm Sheriff John Bunnell. You see them wherever you go. Running stoplights, tailgating, cutting in front of you. Who are they? Bad drivers. And they're a nuisance to everyone on the road.
Look, here comes one now. Fortunately, the unsuspecting pedestrian and the mindless motorcyclist and his passenger are all unharmed. Sometimes the only thing protecting an innocent bystander from a bad driver is pure luck. Police officers are supposed to be the best drivers in the world, but sometimes even the pros make mistakes. Shelby County, North Carolina. Officers respond to a robbery call at a local bank. They radio for backup and button down the crime scene. The detective arrives in an unmarked cruiser and promptly makes a deposit, his car, right into the bank's window. He mistakenly stepped on the gas instead of the brakes. But at least there's no penalty for early withdrawal, just the endless razzing of his buddies. These valiant boys in blue are ready for another day of crime fighting, and this rookie can hardly wait to hit the streets. Literally. Take another look. He climbs the slope, kills the throttle, and kisses the blacktop. And you can be sure that the pavement tastes none too sweet. These firefighters are racing to the scene of a car fire. After negotiating his way through freeway traffic, the driver pulls his truck close to the blaze. A little too close. Now these guys can't even put out a fire on their own truck. The embarrassed driver can only watch as his shiny new fire truck goes up in smoke. Surely ambulance drivers are some of the best drivers in the world. Anxious to protect the public's health and well-being, this driver rushes to an accident scene with his siren blaring. He knows that speed is a must. Ramming into a parked car is optional. The driver backs up to survey the damage and to make sure that he won't have to pick up any extra passengers. Race car drivers are highly skilled, but here's a pro who's about to prove otherwise. Belfast, Northern Ireland. Midway through a road rally, this racer accidentally takes a wrong turn into a fence. Let's watch it again in slow motion. The fence post shatters the windshield and whacks the man in the face, but luckily he escapes uninjured. Our hero calmly pushes the pole back out of the windshield. It's a mistake that this professional driver will never make again. And now let's turn our attention to show-offs. What is it that turns normal drivers into thrill-seeking daredevils? Here's a guy who ought to know.
We were in Hollister Hills, California. It's an off-road park specifically for going out and four-wheeling. The hill was Truck Hill. It's steep, very steep. My cousin says, "You want to try that one?" It's like, sure. Load up, pedal to the metal, let's go. I wasn't nervous at all. I felt we could make it up this hill. It was tough, but I felt we could make it up no problem.
But there is a problem. The rear axle on Mike's truck can't stand the stress.
About third way up, we started hitting a lot of potholes, offsetting. That's when it just snapped.
That wasn't good.
I looked down at my passenger, tell him, hold on, Ronnie.
Hang on to it, Mike.
After that is a tremendous noise. It was like being inside a dryer with a bunch of metal. And my next thought was, we're checking out. This is it. We rolled over 3.5 times. We don't have any control anymore. Now it's just a matter of hanging on. They pitched over, and now I'm looking straight down at my buddy. And I realize I'm not wearing my seatbelt. Everything and me are all flopping straight towards him. And as we kept rolling over, I'm going back from one side to the truck, back to the other side. It threw me out at the last minute.
Oh my God. Are you okay?
I'm thinking I'm okay, Ronnie's okay. Hey, somebody was taping. I hope somebody got that on video.
Hope somebody got that on video.
So I guess he's not going to be doing this again, right? Wrong.
One day I will go back up that hill.
In Brazil, they've invented a new motorsport. These show-offs are performing death-defying spin-outs within inches of their frenzied fans. They're deliberately doing donuts, but they're not enough to satisfy this thrill-hungry mob. So maybe they'd like a turnover. Look at this show-off. He's starving for a snack, but the concession stand is closed. So he opens it. And now here's a show-off with a taste for some chicken. A game of chicken, in reverse, with a bus. Watch again as the hotshot cuts off the bus. This driver nearly becomes an unscheduled bus stop. Rio de Janeiro. Teenage show-offs are turning public transit into a public nuisance with another new sports craze they call bus surfing. Good drivers should be aware of their passengers' whereabouts at all times. But this bus driver is oblivious to the hot doggers who've turned his single-decker bus into a double-decker. Here comes George of the asphalt jungle. Watch out for that tree. And of course, no bus surfing adventure would be complete without this show-off ceremonial victory dance. This German driving specialist could be considered something of a professional show-off. He's been hired to demonstrate a brand new car to an eager crowd of investors. And more importantly, his bosses. He starts with his flawless swerve and skid. But then, you could say this car company is rolling out the new models. The driver may have lost his traction, but not his status as the automotive world's biggest show-off. Long Island, New York. Two buddies are having some fun showing off their new Jeep and catching the action on video. It sounds like a good idea until the driver asks his friend to stand in the middle of the road with a video camera. Well, he speeds towards him in the Jeep. And what is the name of that valiant videographer? His name is Mud. Though not seriously injured, this filmmaker did suffer for his art. Now meet a couple of cut-ups showing off on a scooter. These guys are about to get a crash course called Humility 101. And they're going to learn their lesson the hard way. Here's a quick review, and class dismissed. Check out this shiny new Jeep straight off the showroom floor. What better place to drive it than the beach? But this new car owner should have checked the surf report before showing off for his friends. He's splashed into the waves in his styling new wheels and has gotten stuck in the sand. This deep-sea driver doesn't realize that you just can't drive through an ocean. The only way he'll get that Jeep out of there is if Moses comes along and parts the sea for him. Now the tide turns again, as the waves overpower his beautiful new car. He can only watch helplessly as it floats away into the foam. This drenched driver must have a sinking feeling as his coupe becomes soup. You can always spot a bad driver by the way he parks. So let's take a look at some of the world's worst parking jobs ever caught on tape. Here's a tip. If you've got bad brakes, don't park on an incline. The group steps off the curb, and their happy day goes straight downhill. Along with this poorly parked car. They say that in the future, cars will fly. This driver says, why wait? One minute he was rolling down the highway, and the next minute he found himself parked in the side of a semi. And the driver of the truck?
He felt a bump. I mean, he ends up checking his mirrors like they do often and saw a car there and said, well, time to stop.
This man loves to tinker with engines, so he rebuilt the family car with his very own hands and parked it in his very own home. Unfortunately, his very own home is on the 6th floor of this Russian high-rise. Not to worry, a 25-ton crane comes to the rescue. The man removes a picture window and gingerly nudges his vehicle out, careful not to scratch it. Betty thinks twice before he parks his car in the dining room again. Now the car slowly floats back down to where he once resided, the planet Earth. The high-rise repairman drives off into the sunset and into the biggest pothole in town. In Illinois, this elderly driver inexplicably parks his car on an empty stretch of railroad tracks. Luckily, a friendly citizen stops by to see if he can help. It takes a little doing, but the man finally persuades the motorist to make tracks, off the tracks, and none too soon. A train barrels out of nowhere, smashing into the car at 65 miles per hour. Thanks to the safety-minded passerby, the driver is alive. But his car, or what's left of it, is now a hood ornament on a 150-ton railroad engine. Here's another parking tip. Don't leave your car directly behind a 6-ton dump truck, especially when the dump truck driver is a dumb truck driver who can't afford the extra 2 seconds it takes to check the rearview mirror. The driver of this new subcompact should have thought twice before parking in a construction site. But this isn't the worst parking spot in the world. That would be here in New Zealand, where drivers trying to park at the Gisborne boat ramp have a huge problem. His name is Homer, and he's a 15-foot-long, 4,500-pound elephant seal who likes to turn their parked cars into punching bags. Watch as Homer goes 10 rounds with this late model sedan. Turns out, solid steel is no match for this heavyweight. And finally, from our All's Well That Ends Well department, in Alberta, Canada, neighbors, police, and firefighters are unable to stop this black car, which is spinning circles in the street without a driver.
When we arrived, the car was going into circular motion at fast idle, and we couldn't stop it.
And who's responsible for this out-of-control sedan? A dad who ran into the house and left the motor running and his kids in the back seat. His 5-year-old daughter and 6-year-old son shifted the car into reverse, then jumped from the spinning vehicle and escaped with little more than motion sickness. After 90 nauseating minutes of car spins, a tire blows and the vehicle approaches Kathy Letty's house, where it very carefully parks itself in her front porch. And what was Kathy's reaction to the new parking spot?
I was just going to call it Kathy's Drive-In.
Some of the world's worst drivers are the ones who can't keep their cool, even in their own car. These hotheads behind the wheel are mad as hell. Inverness, Scotland. This vehicle is broken down, and the driver is about to do the same. They say you can't beat a dead horse. Apparently, there's no rule about dead cars. The frustrated motorist tries to give it a kickstart, but to no avail. After a brief pause to collect his thoughts, he tries one last time to get a leg up on this limit. Meanwhile, back in the USA, this driver is being interviewed by police.
You never been arrested before for anything? No.
But that's about to change.
Do you have any trouble in looking? No problem.
But in fact, there's a big problem, and it's about to send this driver over the edge. These officers must have found something they didn't like, because they handcuffed the driver and placed him in the back of the cruiser. And what do they find? A 15-pound bag of marijuana. As the cops continue their search, the suspect has a few moments alone to quietly reflect on the jail time he's facing.
Oh, I can't believe it! Oh, no! 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 God, I can't believe it! Oh, my God! Ah! Oh, my God! Oh, my God! Help me! Help me, God! Help me!
The driver tries to compose himself, but he can't.
Oh! Oh! No! Please, no! No, no, please, no! No, please! God almighty! No, please! Please, no! No! Oh, God, oh, God, oh, God! Help me!
Finally, the officer comes over to check on him.
What was that?
You hollered late? No, sir, I'm just freaked out. I can't believe it happened.
And we can't believe it was all caught on tape. Drinking and driving. It's hard to believe that despite all the warnings, some people still go straight from the bar to the car. Like this DUI suspect in Farmington Hills, Michigan. Officer Garen Anderson is in pursuit through 2 counties before the driver finally notices the red lights.
We went through the intersection, I turned on the lights, and the passenger came out of the passenger window and flashed me as we pulled into the parking lot. It was all downhill from there.
The officer approaches the car and finds 2 party girls who are practically naked.
How you doing, lady?
We've seen you, we want you. We're sorry, we didn't mean to say that. You're pretty hot.
Well, thank you very much.
You got a big Billy Club or whatever they're called?
I've been married for 10 years, so it was just something blew my mind.
And just when Officer Anderson thought things couldn't possibly get any more bizarre,
the next thing I know is they were coming out the windows in their underwear and running through the sprinklers of the parking lot.
Oh, my. Ladies, come back to the car. I think they might have to go.
Officer Anderson and his backup approached the erratic drivers, turned erotic dancers to deliver the bad news.
Come on, lady. Come on.
I've never been to jail before.
Well, you shouldn't have gone and ran through the sprinklers naked.
Please don't arrest us. We're normal girls.
So why were these normal girls driving around nearly naked?
The girls were out for a night of amateur stripping. The driver apparently had been dancing and was supposed to have won the contest that night.
Since stripping didn't quite work out for this second-rate showgirl, she now reveals to Officer Anderson her new career goal.
I'm in the criminal justice program. Do you think this is gonna make me in trouble and I won't be able to be a cop now?
In her state of dress, I couldn't imagine her being a police officer. The most unimaginable or weird thing of the whole night is just to see these 2 women crawl out the windows of a car in their underwear and just go rollick in the sprinklers. This is a night most police officers would never even imagine.
Oh, my.
Rutledge, Georgia. Not all DUI suspects are behind the wheel of a car. Officer Keith Fitzgerald responds to a call about a drunk driver on a lawnmower.
When we pulled up, we saw an older fella on the lawnmower. I pulled up behind him and I honked my horn, and he didn't even turn around and look, and wouldn't stop.
The lawnmower man leads Fitzgerald on a chase that reaches speeds of up to 3 miles per hour.
Finally, the guy started weaving back and forth to the left, to the right, and he started leaning over. and I was like, this guy's gonna fall off the lawnmower.
Tired from the chase, the senior finally decides to take a nap.
We basically evaluated the whole situation and decided that the best thing for this guy to do was to take him home.
So remember, if you've hit the bottle, don't hit the road. Now let's take a look at an exciting new sporting event. Bad drivers from around the world are rounded up into a stadium for a game of car soccer. The idea is to get the world's worst drivers off the road so they can crash into each other for a change. Looks like these gas-guzzling gladiators have finally found a useful outlet for their deranged driving.
When the weather turns bad, driving can be a nightmare. A smart driver will slow down and keep a safe distance between himself and the car ahead. And a bad driver, well, he's probably better off taking the bus.
Here it comes now. Even though it's the great Russian hurricane of '98, neither rain, nor sleet, nor snow, nor apparently a flood of biblical proportions can stop this Moscow bus driver from making his appointed rounds. Watch again. Most guys would back up and take a detour, but this driver is determined to stay on schedule. Chicago, Illinois. Watch as a police officer gets an unexpected ice skating lesson on this frozen freeway. Brian Boitano, eat your heart out. Cobb County, Georgia. Watch the sparks fly as Officer Robert Quigley's car is hit with debris from a telephone pole that's just been shattered by a bolt of lightning. A moment earlier, lightning struck the pole just a few feet from the officer's vehicle, leaving him with nowhere to go, but straight through the fireworks. How shocking. In Toronto, Canada, freezing conditions turn Highway 401 into an icy nightmare. But it's really more like a bowling alley. This driver squeaks through the 710 split. Then along comes another one to pick up the spare. And to clear a lane for the next bowler. Here he comes now. Strike. Stalled in the snow, this Russian driver decides to jump-start his car in reverse. The car jumps, and the driver starts to chase it, straight into 400 pounds of frozen snow. More proof that when the weather turns nasty, don't get in your car. Get in your sweater and stay put.
So you think you've seen every example of bad driving? Well, think again. You ain't seen nothing yet.
One of the best pieces of advice for drivers is to keep your eyes on the road. And here's why. Seguin, Texas. This woman was pulled over by State Trooper Christopher Herron for speeding on Interstate 10.
Let me get you to come on over here, man. If you're up here and anybody hits the back of my patrol car, it's a good chance you're going to get caught somewhere in between that car and your car. And if you're not caught in between, you may still get struck by one of the vehicles. I don't want that to happen to you.
Suddenly, the officer's prediction becomes a reality.
Just like that, see? Just like that.
Just like that. The driver of the van wasn't paying attention. He took his eyes off the road and paid the price. There's good news for the woman, though. She's safe, and her car was a rental. California's Highway 2. A group of bikers motor through the mountains to take in the spectacular scenery. But one rider is about to create a spectacular scene of his own.
What we basically did is said, hey, we're going to stop at this scenic point right past the two tunnels. And I thought everybody knew where we're stopping.
Everyone, that is, except a biker named Ken, who's trailing the pack. He's so busy sightseeing that he doesn't notice these guys stopped ahead of him. Veteran biker Orlando Pablo takes the brunt.
I just saw Orlando go straight up in the air and right down on his head. Ken just got bruised up pretty bad. Nobody needed hospitalization whatsoever.
You all right? Yeah, I'm all right.
Ken wasn't cruising for a bruising, but on that day, that's just what he got. And finally, here's a motorcyclist who does have his eyes on the road. In fact, he's so focused on the road that he doesn't even notice the wire stretched across it. With no other riders to challenge him, this driver finishes the race unharmed and just under the wire. Glendale, Arizona. A man and his daughter are filming a commercial for a local car dealer. Dad's kind of nervous because the commercial features his baby. Not his daughter Lisa, but his vintage T-Bird, which is worth over $75,000. Dad will be glad when he can get it safely back into the garage. Here comes take one.
My dad bought this car from Don Sanderson Ford 30 years ago.
Now here comes Lisa. She's a little nervous, but she's covering up nicely. All she has to do is simply back out of the driveway.
A lot of changes at Don Sanderson Ford. You look, you cut.
But instead of reverse, Lisa shifts into forward and runs right into Dad's classic car. Even though Lisa's bad driving was captured forever, her forgiving father kept his cool, and take two went off without a hitch. Is there a more thankless job on earth than meter maid? We went to England and found out that the answer is definitely no. 30 assaults on parking attendants are reported each week in London alone. You've heard of road rage. This is meter madness.
Hey, now you pack it in, you do not touch me.
That's Nigel Montford, one of the most abused meter maids in all of London.
They all need a smack in the mouth. I had enough of you and your parking tickets and everything.
How can these people talk that way to a man in uniform?
People definitely find it easier to yell at a meter maid than to a policeman. They don't feel as intimidated. The meter maid is not armed, does not have a gun.
I'm afraid you're parked in an active bus lane, sir.
You just wait, there's a lady in a car.
No,
you lot down.
There's no drive. There's no. Thank you, sir.
Write your badge number.
Sorry?
Write your badge number.
It's already on the ticket, sir.
It's already on the ticket. I see.
Here we go, sir.
Hey, you don't give me no time. You never give me jack.
I've tried.
Where you give me? What time you give me? Tell me what time you give me.
Nigel isn't London's only malign meter maid. There's also Emmanuel Smith. The parking attendant in the white helmet is issuing a ticket to this woman. Not realizing this, Emmanuel approaches the woman to issue a ticket as well, and she sees red.
Excuse me, I was talking to him, okay? He's the one who came along. Excuse me, he can give a ticket as well, can't he? Move your paper from there, okay?
Undaunted, Emmanuel proceeds to write her up.
Give me that paper, okay? Because I wasn't talking to you in the first place, okay? He was the one who came along, so we're having that.
Thank goodness backup arrives. Emmanuel's supervisor.
Please, there's no need to.
No, but if there's no need, why do you take the number in the first place?
Come on, discuss with me.
Why do you take the number in the first place?
Sorry.
This woman won't even read the ticket, but she will read Emmanuel the Riot Act.
He's in the parking officer. I am the only one who knows. Why is he talking to me?
Listen,
Why did you budge in? Why did you budge in? He's a parking ticket officer as well.
Emmanuel takes her advice and does the sensible thing. He walks away. Unfortunately, she does too, directly into his path.
If you come close to my car, the police will.
Finally, the verbal abuse turns physical.
Get your facts right. Okay?
Watch again as she reaches out and pokes Emmanuel right in the eye. Then she adds insult to injury.
Now, if you can't understand some people's problem, don't do the job.
Emmanuel Smith and Nigel Montford, two of London's finest and most abused meter maids. We all know what to do when we see flashing red lights in the rearview mirror. Safely pull to the side of the road and stop the car. But here's a handy list of what not to do. This driver's on parole and living with his mom. And how does he thank her? By stealing her car and leading police on a chase through their neighborhood. When he finally notices the red lights, he doesn't stop. He kicks open the car door and knocks over the neighbor's garbage cans. When he's done taking out the trash, he respectfully signals that he's headed back home, where he gives the officers this explanation.
I don't like my neighbors. This is my house.
Is that why you did that? You don't like your neighbors?
Yeah, because they're always looking at what I'm doing, so just let them give them something to look at.
Well, the police are sure going to give him something to look at, the inside of a jail cell. Amadale, New South Wales. A manic motorist shows us another example of what not to do in a police pursuit. He stole a semi and led police on a 240-mile chase. But he didn't bother to patch the hole in the side of the truck before putting the pedal to the metal. Now he's showering the road with the very merchandise he's trying to steal. But this driver won't stop yet. He keeps speeding along even though the side of his semi has been ripped open like an envelope on payday. Apparently, it never occurred to him that if you can see a large portion of your own vehicle in the rearview mirror, you should just give up. Well, this guy wouldn't give up until the next morning, when he realized there was nothing left to steal. He was booked on everything from grand theft to littering. This Ohio joyrider sees the red flashing lights, but instead of politely pulling onto the shoulder, he decides to rear-end the truck in front of him. End of story. But it's worth retelling. Dumb driver dashes, police light flashes, dumb driver crashed. Consider this the shortest police chase on record. This English motorist did pull over. So far, so good. But now he'll show you what not to do. He shifts his Range Rover into reverse and smashes into the cop car.
We've just been rammed by this Range Rover at Glanmore Road, have we?
But he doesn't stop there. The driver takes off, leading police on a chase through the city. And moments later,
He's gonna ram us again, over?
He does it again. So remember, if you see flashing lights, pull over. Or just like this guy, you could end up in the slammer. New York City, home of the most professional taxicab drivers in the world. Lima, Peru, where the cab drivers have only one thing in common with their New York counterparts.
Hay tantos huecos que la ciudad se parece a la luna.
They don't speak English either. Unlike America, in Peru it's relatively easy to become a cabbie. First you pick up the necessary equipment. Then you obtain an operator's license from the taxi commissioner. Here he comes now. The proper procedure for displaying said license is to moisten it, then stick it on the one spot where it will cause the maximum obstruction of your field of vision. Taxi driver Paulo Ramon proudly shows off his sparkling cab. It features the latest electronic ignition. Now Paulo shows us his daily safety check. Is the trunk securely closed? Is the license plate properly attached? Yes, on both counts. Is the climate control in working order? Yes, the state-of-the-art air conditioning unit works like a breeze. But as an extra precaution, coolant is added to the system to ensure maximum comfort for the passenger and maximum slickness for the road. Because of the bright daylight conditions, a headlight is hardly necessary. A final touch, a piece of high-tech equipment known as a knob must be painstakingly attached to the gear shift. Satisfied at last, Paulo is ready to hit the night shift. When push comes to shove, he's one of the world's worst drivers. It's Thanksgiving Day, but bad driving never takes a holiday. For instance, heavy rains have flooded out Daryl Cubine's usual shortcut through the golf course.
Whole course is a water hazard.
Daryl talks it over with his wife on the cell phone.
Going into the golf course, yeah, I'm wondering if I can make it through. The road's totally gone.
But is Daryl totally gone too? He drives straight into the golf course's brand new water hazard.
I'll make it.
But Daryl speaks too soon.
Oh, truck's filling up. The whole cab's full of water. This is unreal.
Oh, it's real, all right. Daryl can only sit on top of his truck and wait to be rescued. But he has plenty of time for another phone call to the folks back home.
I'm stuck out here. I'm sitting on my toolbox.
Rescue workers finally arrive and fish Daryl out. He makes it home for Thanksgiving dinner without his truck, but with a great news story. This bad driver in Lancashire, England, is about to drop a big surprise on the police officer who's pursuing him for reckless driving.
There was no indication that the occupants of the car had actually done anything other than a traffic matter.
But when Constable Allen fires up his flashing lights, the pursuit quickly escalates to over 100 miles per hour. The suspect weaves in and out of traffic, in his lane and in the oncoming lane.
I saw one of the males climb from the rear seat into the hatchback area. He then opened the tailgate from inside and then started throwing electrical goods at me. The first thing that came out was a TV set, which bounced down the road merrily and shattered into a million pieces.
The officer is now being bombarded with thousands of dollars worth of recently stolen fax machines, VCRs, and television sets.
You just don't expect when you get into this situation that people are going to start chucking TVs and videos at you as you're travelling down the road.
Undaunted by the home electronics obstacle course, Constable Allen continues the chase until the careless criminals are finally apprehended.
He probably thinks that he was the world's best driver, but without doubt that was probably one of the world's worst pieces of driving I've ever seen.
Whoever said "don't get mad, get even" would be proud of David Cannon, a determined driver from Morpeth, England. He felt he was getting a lot of BS from the folks down at City Hall. So one day, he went out to his barn where there was plenty of the real thing lying around. David grabbed the shovel and filled up his muck thrower, a gigantic farm machine that shoots fertilizer into his fields. Then he drove it over to City Hall, where the muck thrower lived up to its name. At the touch of a button, tons of cow manure fly through the air, causing the biggest stink in the history of local politics. The stunned workers can only stare in disbelief as their beautiful building is plunged into darkness.
The office workers was rushing to shut the windows because it was a fine autumn day.
David misses a spot, but always a stickler for perfection. He backs up to give it another shot.
And I lifted the lid and started again.
Finally, when David feels justice has been served, he prepares to head home.
It was the only thing I could think of that was going to bring attention to the public.
But unfortunately, it also brings him to the attention of the local police, who fine him $1,400 for his dirty little trick.
Some people think I'm crazy. I think I'm a real nice chap, really.
Not according to these office workers. You think your job stinks? Imagine how they suffered after being visited by one of the world's worst drivers. Tonight, we've seen some of the worst drivers ever caught on tape. So how do you stay out of their way?
The best way to protect yourself against bad drivers is to slow down. Keep your eyes on the road and always wear your seatbelt. I'm Sheriff John Bunnell. Stay safe.
Thanks, John. Stay safe by remembering to clunk-click every trip. Hey, I bet you've not heard that for a few years on telly, eh? Right, up next, we've our late-night sport, and we're starting in just a few moments with some snooker.